Hi everybody, welcome to another Kids Crafternoon with Christina. Today we're going to be making a really cute pillowcase. What you need for this pillowcase is 2 pieces of fabric that you like together. Quilt weight cotton is really perfect for this. You need the width of the fabric to be about 45 inches, and your 2 pieces, you need the cuff to be one third of a yard, which is 12 inches, and the main to be 2/3 of a yard, which is 24 inches. So this is how you're going to put it together. The first thing you're going to do is take your cuff fabric, the piece that is 12 inches, and you're going to open it all the way up so you can see both of your selvages. These are your selvages right there. You're going to open that all the way up and slide it to the top, and then you're going to take your fabric that is 2/3 of a yard, 24 inches wide, or long, I guess. It's 45 inches wide, both of them are, and you're going to put it right sides together, just like that, so that the the pretty sides are facing each other. And you're going to slide these top layers together, and you're going to pin. So you want to make sure that you put your pins in perpendicular to the direction that we're going to be sewing. We're going to be sewing these 2 pieces together this way, so put your pins in perpendicular. And you want to make sure that those layers are slid together and they're lined up as best as you can be. And I guess my pins are about a hand distance apart-ish. So you can pin more or less, whatever's most comfortable for you. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to sew those 2 pieces together where we pinned. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to sew those 2 pieces together at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. The thread color doesn't matter at all in this project because the thread is all on the inside of your pillowcase and none of it's on the outside. So you can use a contrast color or matchy, whatever you want to. So we're going to sew those together at 3/8. Don't forget to back stitch when you start. Don't sew over a pin. This is a pretty long seam, so it's nice to have this kind of up on your lap too, so it's not dragging on the floor, and also so that the machine isn't having to pull it too much. So leave your fabric, your extra fabric, on your lap. And if your layers slide apart like that, just pull them together. You want them to be slid together as best as you can. And don't forget to backstitch. Okay, so the next thing you do, you have those pieces sewn together. You're going to take the bigger bit of fabric, the 2/3 of a yard, and you're going to roll it. And it doesn't have to be a perfect roll. You're just going to roll just to get it out of the way. So you're just rolling it up to about halfway up to the cuff. And then you're going to take this end of the cuff and you're going to flip it like that so that you have 1 layer of your main fabric sandwiched between 2 layers of your cuff fabric, like this. And then you're going to pin again. And again, I'm pinning with about a hand width distance between my pins. And make sure that that layer gets slid together with those other 2 layers of fabric. All right, so now what you have is you have 1 layer of your cuff sandwiched between 2 layers of, 1 layer of your main sandwiched between 2 layers of your cuff with the rest of the main rolled up in the middle of that. I know this seems really weird. It's called the Burrito Method, and it's a really strange method, but it comes together really nicely, so just trust me, it's gonna be really good. So now we're gonna sew again where we sewed before, but now we're sewing this layer on, and we're just gonna follow that same seam line. So I'm gonna sew again right on that same seam line. I flipped it over from the direction that I pinned it, but that's so that I can see where I sewed before, so I can sew right on top of that. that this whole thing is sewn together, I'm going to trim my beginning threads too. If I can find them. There they are. Then I'm going to take this rolled up bit that was in the middle and I'm going to pull that all the way out. And this feels a little weird to do too, but what it's doing is it's flipping the cuff right side out, and then it's going to flatten out the piece that you rolled up so that you can sew it together like a pillowcase. So there's the whole thing all flattened out. And then what you're going to do next is you're going to iron this cuff flat because this tends to roll a little bit, so just going to iron it quickly just to kind of press that seam out. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to iron the cuff flat because it rolls after you sew it, and you just want to just kind of run an iron over it, just kind of flatten it out. Doesn't have to be perfect. This step actually does help in the next step, so I'd say don't skip this one. So now that's just all ironed nice and flat, and then we're going to sew it up again. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to put your pillowcase pieces right sides together, and you're going to look at your selvage. So if you want to note how this selvage is really wide and this one not so wide, but I'm going to need to sew all the way down this side and then pivot and sew that short side. But I don't want my selvage to show on the outside of my pillowcase. So what I usually do is eyeball a line up from that big selvage, and I'm gonna start sewing my pillowcase way in there. So I'm also gonna pin kind of where I think my seam is gonna go. I'll measure it again once I get on the machine. And I'm diving my pins underneath that edge of the selvage because I'm going to be sewing right to the left side of that selvage. And then when I pin this end, the short end, I'm just going to pin like I normally do because this is going to be a 3/8 inch seam allowance. So it's all pinned, and now we're going to sew it. So I need to start sewing at this top edge, but remember I want to bring it pretty far in so that I don't hit that selvage when I come down into the bigger part. So I'm just going to eyeball a line up from my selvage to the top of my cuff. So it's about right there. And again, good enough is good enough. So don't forget to do a couple of back stitches here, because when you open this part up to put the pillow inside, you don't want this busting open. So I usually back stitch a couple times. And then as I sew, and I'm getting down toward my main part of my pillowcase, I'm making sure that I'm aiming my stitch so I'm going to land to the left of my selvage. So sew all the way down to you're about 3/8 of an inch away from the edge, because now you're going to pivot. So make sure your needle's down, lift your presser foot, spin your fabric, put your presser foot back down, and that's close enough to 3/8. And don't forget to backstitch. The very last step we're going to do is we're going to zigzag the raw edge of this short seam that you just sewed, because when you wash this, it's going to fray, and you don't want it to continue to fray. So you're just going to zigzag right here on that short edge. The selvage edge doesn't fray, so you don't have to finish that at all. That won't ever fray. So I'm just going to go to zigzag, and my seam allowance is going to be 1/8 when I do a zigzag, You don't have to backstitch on a zigzag. And there you go. I'm just going to trim my threads. Okay, so now it's all sewn and we're going to see what we got. So you have to just turn the whole thing right side out. Poke out your bottom corners. And look at that. Cutie little pillowcase. So you just stick your pillow in there and you have yourself a new pillowcase.